entire town is under evacuation orders. It is a very serious situation.
It feels like Armageddon out here.
The fire is not marked.
We can confirm we've seen multiple homes catch on fire.
This is something that most of us have never seen. And I've been a cop a long time, and I haven't seen one this big in this area. And I'm from this area. I was born and raised in this area.
For those who are directly affected, know that you don't stand alone. The people of Colorado stand with you.
It's hard to, come home at the end of the day and know that you lost 1,000 houses and, feel like you did a good job.
We moved into a hotel to celebrate my birthday.
The hotel looked like one right out of a movie. The long front desk with the sad front desk workers.
Just then, Alex put her arm around me and whispered, "We are in this together." And at that moment, I saw hope that everything was going to be okay. It could only got better from there. At least we have each other.
I can't believe that it's almost a year and that the lot looks like this. Expected to be farther along.
Without the friends and family and community, we probably wouldn't be rebuilding.
I'm back here every day.
And you get excited. Then you start getting impatient.
I want to come back here. This is home.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us for this special half hour. Recovering Together, Marshall Fire 1 year later. I am Shannon Ogden here live in Superior. And 1 year ago, that fierce Marshall Fire roared right through here. It ended the day as the most destructive wildfire in state history. More than 1,000 homes were destroyed that day, and an estimated $2 billion in damage was done. Now, over the next half hour, we will share updates on the rebuilding process. We'll hear stories from those who have decided rebuilding is just not in the cards. We'll also hear stories from first responders and from some of the youngest Marshall Fire victims. Now, the community really came together today to sing and to pray for those impacted by this fire. There was a service at Christ the Servant Lutheran Church in Louisville today. The survivors also gathered for a breakfast together, spent time putting into words what their experiences were 1 year ago today and in the days that have followed since. Denver 7's Bayan Wang joins us live in Louisville tonight. And Bayan, this rebuilding process it's been so long, it has been cumbersome, and it has been so painfully slow.
Yes, Shannon, it's been a very, very long year for those families who are trying to rebuild, who found out that the rebuilding process is a whole nother nightmare that they have to deal with. Just for perspective, of the 1,000 homes that were destroyed in the Marshall Fire, just one family so far has been able to move back into their home that they rebuilt.
It's not exactly music. On the ground in the fire zone, metal and machinery serve as much more. But not for all. It's been the most difficult year for more than 1,000 of our neighbors, including the youngest.
I know, it's really sad, isn't it?
It has been for some time now for the DeLoe family. A year later, the debris is all gone, but the lot where their home once stood in Louisville is still just that, a lot.
I can't believe that it's almost a year and that the lot looks like this. With the amount of energy that we've been expending this past year, I really expected to be farther along, and I'm just so tired.
So many others are just that, so tired.
It was really scary waking up the next day, talking to the agent and realizing we have like maybe, a third of the coverage to rebuild the home.
Underinsured and unsure of what comes next.
Without the friends and family and community, we probably wouldn't be rebuilding.
Yet there are so many others in an even tougher spot.
Some people, they have to sell because they cannot afford to rebuild. They're simply priced out of the neighborhood.
Underinsurance, inflation, a difficult market, leaving a difficult choice. The numbers reflect the struggle. In Louisville, 550 homes destroyed, only 123 rebuilding permits issued. That's less than a quarter 1 year later, while 60 permits are under review. In Superior, 387 homes destroyed, 97 building permits issued, 65 permits pending. And in unincorporated Boulder County, only 28 permits issued compared to the 157 homes destroyed.
It's not as quick as we wanted.
Mark Lasis is Superior's new mayor.
This became kind of the hub for operations in the immediate aftermath of the fire.
Taking over the most difficult circumstances, trying to learn from experts in California and Oregon who've gone through rebuilding at this scale before.
They told us, best case scenario, expect 2 to 3 years from the date of the fire as to when people are going to be moving back into their homes.
But Lasis' vision for Superior is more optimistic.
We're looking at 18 months. So 18 months from the fire, I think realistically, people are going to be moving back into their homes.
I want to come back here. This is home.
There's a backyard facing kind of this way.
No, so it's basically...
Residents like Chris Rolfe are waiting to break ground.
Nobody had big backyards here.
His rebuilding plan started almost immediately after his family home was lost.
So I think coming back here, it's a great opportunity to rebuild some of those memories.
An opportunity with so many challenges.
You have to deal with insurance, your mortgage company, trying to get financing secured. It's basically a full-time job.
One so many in these communities have taken on, including Rolfe's neighbors, Jim and Sandy Kerfman.
I'm back here every day.
And you get excited. Then you start getting impatient. Like, can't you hurry up and get this done?
But the Kerfmans know they're much further along compared to others still waiting for their permits.
We're hopeful that we'll have it by January.
And the DeLoes,
We bought this house when she was 1 week old.
wait for their comeback story, their song of rebuilding and returning to start getting off the ground. I'm Bayan Wang, Denver 7.
And not everyone's in the market to rebuild. Many are just moving on because of the cost, because of being so underinsured. We spoke to a RE/MAX agent who says there are 75 lots for sale in the Marshall Fire burn zone. 40 lots have sold already. Now, experts say for some survivors here, it just makes more sense to sell and move on.
The cost was just prohibitive, really. When you're in your 40s, you might be saying, if it takes 18 months or 2 years, okay, that's why I want to be back in my neighborhood. When you're more in my season of life, or older, that doesn't sound so attractive.
Of the 75 current listings, the average lot's going for $498,000. The average price of the 40 sold so far, just above $400,000. So here I want to show you, this is the most expensive lot listed right now, just under $800,000. This is in the Enclave neighborhood in Louisville. It has a view of the Flatirons. The least expensive lot listed in the burn zone is $275,000. Denver 7's Jessica Porter spoke to one woman who has decided to leave. Jessica has her story.
It was a 3-story home on the open space.
When we spoke to Linda Jackson the day after the Marshall Fire 1 year ago, she was determined to live out her next big adventure.
Rebuild. Yes, I will. I love living in Louisville. I love this area. I love Colorado.
But the reality of permits, contractors, and construction became all too much for Linda.
But then I realized I'm going to be 75 in January. Do I really want to go through this deal of rebuilding?
Linda just moved into her new home in Broomfield this month.
I love the view here.
But says trying to find a home in this market wasn't easy.
I paid more for this house than I probably should have, and I had to sell all my stocks, and I had to sell all my stocks low.
It's not the most ideal situation. Many rooms in her home are unfurnished. What she has donated.
Precious child gave me the bed.
So Linda is going back to work to turn her house into a home.
And they picked me to be the nanny for this new little baby, the newborn baby. And it's in Louisville.
That decision is partially because she hasn't had any interested buyers on her property in Louisville.
First, I tried to sell the property on my own, and then it didn't happen. So then I got a realtor, and nothing's happened at all.
Revisiting where her home once stood is a mix of emotions. She's not the only one selling. Others are rebuilding. A year later, she hasn't lost touch with her neighbors.
We do feel connected. We all hug, and it's just, It's just so unbelievable. And to go through that neighborhood, and you live there for 20 years. I get with them all the time.
Are you disappointed that no one has been found responsible for the fire?
Yes, I am. And I'm disappointed that no one really came and told me to evacuate my home. That's really disappointing when you look at the backyard and you got a fire behind your backyard.
Despite going through so much, Linda is determined to continue her big adventures.
I did Israel and Jordan by myself, and then I met her in Egypt.
Just returning from a trip with a friend that was canceled when her passport was destroyed in the fire.
A lot of tragedy in my life, but you just have to beef up to it and make you a better person and just enjoy life and do things and move on. And that's what I'm doing, move it on.
Jessica Porter.
And enjoy life.
Denver 7.
We certainly understand that. Well, 2 weeks ago, the Boulder County Sheriff's Office released dozens of new body cam videos from the fire. And they revealed, of course, the horrors of that day, but really they also showed the bravery of the first responders who saved countless lives. Denver 7's Russell Haythorne sat down with 3 firefighters as they look back on the last year.
First of all, thank you, all 3 of you, for joining us. Talk about where you are post-fire.
It's still surreal. I mean, just coming back to the station, driving through Superior and looking at all the damage and all the houses they're starting to be rebuilt, but yet all of that area that there's no longer anything there. You know, it's just, again, it's just a surreal feeling. Every time you drive through, you just still can't imagine what we saw and the work that everybody did.
So this is Old Town here, Superior right here.
What they did was save what they could up against hurricane force winds and incredible odds the night of the Marshall Fire.
So much smoke and ash and soot. They said 115 mile-an-hour gusts.
Truly ripped the doors off the hinges of the vehicles.
Firefighters trying to defend hundreds of homes, including their own.
So many of our firefighters lived in that community.
Even in your profession, would you have ever guessed
No.
that kind of thing could happen?
And I thought it would never happen here, you know, ever. And it did. All the fires, the wildland fires, are going to be in the mountain area, you know, and no, it's right on our back door.
You never know.
A lot changed that day.
What is it like being in a firefight like that?
It's a level of intensity that it's just hard to describe. You could feel the heat, you could hear the fire, and you couldn't see it.
And yet somehow these crews and countless others kept going, kept fighting.
That whole event was a different level of stress.
They had to pass up homes that were on fire to get to others they felt they could save.
We call it freelancing, and it's a no-no on the fire ground. You don't freelance, right? You stick with your assignment. That's what you do, right? For that fire, we freelanced. We went from an apartment complex to a hotel.
They even evacuated an entire hospital and partially evacuated another because of so much smoke and ash.
Even though they'd shut down their air handlers, it was inundating the hospital.
What do you mean you evacuated a Vista? How do you evacuate a hospital? Well, they did it.
At one point that ominous night, power was shut down to 2 entire cities, and both Superior and Louisville also ran out of water.
I mean, we used all the water in the system. Props to Superior and Louisville Water, because they dumped a whole lake, raw water, into their water system to help support us.
Firefighters even recall taking drinks out of people's refrigerators and dumping them around the houses to create a barrier, something, anything, no matter how small.
They went in people's fridges and took beer and put out people's porches with their own beer.
No way.
Swear to God, man. Swear to God.
Anything you could find.
So just to wet it down enough and, raise the humidity, and just enough to like buy a minute or two. And, it's just one thing after the other, and just hard to get ahead of it.
Their work never ends.
I was with Captain Street on this engine behind you.
In fact, even during this interview,
there's not one person on our department that doesn't, feel bad about that.
Engine responds.
You guys gotta go?
Bye, mate.
We'll see.
Engineer Lee Brown, the driver of this rig, had to roll on a grass fire of all things.
Can I get this, please?
Yeah.
Fortunately, on this day,
these guys are coming back now. Should we wait, or you want me to keep talking?
The outcome, much better than the Marshall Fire. Lee sitting back down with us 30 minutes later. They got the fire out.
Minutes, it's across the divide.
You're back.
Like, wow.
I'm back. Part of it is you just do it because that's how we kind of train.
Just so impressed with all the people and, people helping people and people getting out of there. Really showed what an amazing community we have.
For Denver 7.
It's hard to come home at the end of the day and know that you lost 1,000 houses and, feel like you did a good job. But I mean, we really, really feel like, we saved so many houses and, people and everything that day.
I'm Russell Haythorne.